Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I want to introduce you today to Koleya Karringten. She's a dear friend of mine, and she's an absolute trailblazer. She is a CEO of Absolute Combustion, and she's also the managing director for the Canadian Blockchain Consortium. And I really want people to know all about Koleya because she is blazing trails in both industries. And I want people to, get words of encouragement and find out about her journey and see how, with a little bit of perseverance, this too can be you. So welcome, Koleya.
Thank you for having me, Emma.
So I know a little bit about you, but I'd like you to tell everybody about, your journey. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. So I've been I guess like a clean tech entrepreneur since about 2005, I guess. Oh gosh, it's been so long. So long. I started my entrepreneurial journey actually quite young. So the story I always love to share, it has a lot to do with my dad actually. So when I was about 3 years old, my dad sat me down in his lap and he started learning all about business. He actually started his own concierge service because he wanted to learn from all these major Fortune 500 executives how they got to where they are today. But he was a Black musician. He grew up in like rural Alberta. He made money with him and his brothers in a family band. And then in his 20s, he wanted to get out of it. But he had a grade 10 level education. He didn't want to go back to school, and he didn't want to have to like get a job and work his way up to the top. So he's like, there must be some way to fast track this here. So he did this whole like kind of like chart of plotting out like how do I figure out how to do this without actually having to go back to school. So he figured out they're all transported. So when the executives fly into the airport, they always pick up a driver. So he ended up with like $1.50 in his pocket. He raised, I don't know how he did it, but like $1.5 million and started one of the best ground concierge services in Vancouver. And he did this by the time I was 3. So he sat me down and he's just like, everything I learned about business, I'm going to talk to you about because I don't have anyone else to talk to for one. He's like, but hopefully you're going to learn enough information that by the time you hit 21, we're going to write a business plan and go into business together. And it's just like, I was 3. So of course I'm like, oh, daddy, whatever. By the time I was 5, my dad realized, okay, if my daughter's going to be a woman in business, she has to be like a lady. So he started sending me to Friday night etiquette training. Did this for about 10 plus years. I had every Friday night, I had to go learn how to walk, talk, sit, dance, entertain. You've seen my functions, so you know how much I love to host and entertain. That was definitely grilled in me from a very young age. And then by the time I was 8, my dad's like, okay, she needs to start getting some like financial skills. So he started bringing like business coaches or financial planners to the table, teaching you all about like fiduciary responsibilities and compounding interest rates. So whatever he would learn, he would bring the people home to teach me as well. And so my first understanding of like money was like, okay, if I save like $25 a week for this many weeks, by the time I'm this age, I'll be a millionaire. And I looked at my dad, I was like, how do I get $25? And he's just like, well, you got to start it up. And I was just like, so by the time I was 13, I started my first business. It was a lawn mowing company, and it was just something I could do myself in the neighborhood. Started making a bit of money off that, which was exciting. And then by the time I was 16, my dad, he wanted me to have a debutante, so I had one of those, which was really fun. Actually, there was a moment I missed. When I was 11, my dad actually sold off his ground concierge service and decided he'd learned enough. He wanted to become an international business speaker and teaching people all about like time management. So I'm not sure if people are aware of a gentleman named Jim Rohn, but he was the same coach Tony Robbins had. So my dad and Tony Robbins were actually in the same kind of classes together.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so my mom knows Tony Robbins, and my dad did when he was alive. So my weekends were then spent listening to Jim Rohn on workshops on all about like business and time management and corporate culture in the workplace and different things like that. My very first weekend there, I was so excited. I was actually feverishly taking down notes. I was a very strange, quirky child. I loved political conversations and money conversations and conspiracy conversations because that's what my dad talked to me about. So granted, I was not the kid everyone wanted to play with at the school ground, that was for sure. But I took like 64 pages of notes. And of course, my writing was like horrible and massive at that age, but he was so impressed, not 64, my goodness, sorry, 16. He was so impressed at how many pages of notes I took that he brought me up to the front of the room and he's like, this young lady's going places. So fast track, when I was 21, my dad's like, all right, it's time to start a business together. And I was about to be a young mom and a young single mom at that. And my dad's like, all right, it's time to think about the next generation. And he came up with this idea that we were going to start a technology company. The technology had to benefit the environment. If it benefited the environment, it would benefit the people on it. And we were going to try and at least fix the mess that we created ourselves for the next generation. So yeah, 21, we started Absolute Combustion, and we've been going now. We've commercialized in 3 different industry sectors, from oil and gas to waste plastics, latest in the aviation sector. So it's definitely been a bit of a wild ride throughout that, but that's a little bit of my background. I don't actually have formal training. I never went to school to learn about business or anything like that. I just learned it from all these amazing people. Actually, when I was 24, I think my dad started sending me all across North America to learn from guys like Nito Cobain. He is the president of High Point University, but also he had Lazy Boy Furniture and stuff like that. I got to learn from George Ross, Eric Trump, Jay Abrams, guys like that, which was really cool. So I got a very extensive background.
And that explains so much, Koleya. That's absolutely impressive that your dad had this vision and knew he wanted to do something and basically gave you the tools to get there. And then you went into business together, because that also explained a little bit about, Absolute Combustion. And just tell us a little bit more about that before I get into my other things. Just like, yes, because you're doing so many interesting things right now. I see them all over LinkedIn.
So when I say clean tech, so we design combustion burner systems. So if you think about heat, especially if you live up in Canada or even some colder places up north, heat impacts every single aspect of our modern day lives. You need heat to make the roads, you need heat to warm your houses, you need heat to cook your food, you need heat to make your buildings. It's a way of converting energy. And the way that it was being done, before we got involved with it, we noticed a lot of the emissions, 84% of the emissions in the energy sector would actually come of the combustion component. Only 14% of emissions come from transporting down a pipeline. So when my dad and I realized that, we're like, all right, this is the point where we need to start. How do we take something that is as old as, basically man-made fire, and we haven't really reinvented that wheel. Like if you notice colors on a flame, you have like orange and red and stuff like that. And it's where the carbon monoxide comes from, it's where the carbon dioxide comes from, it's where the NOx emissions, now these greenhouse gas emissions come from, is you're not effectively utilizing the energy source or the fuel source that's coming through. So when we designed our burner system, we decided to create the perfect environment for combustion. So we have 0 NOx, 0 carbon monoxide, and we can reduce your carbon dioxide anywhere from 35 to 70% by utilizing our technology. So we've adapted this burner system into various different applications, and latest was actually aircraft heating, which we were really excited about. So before my daddy passed away, we were about to be able to kind of get into the oil and gas space, and unfortunately he never got to kind of see his baby out in the field. And then after he passed, I was like, he loved airplanes. Like when I was a little girl, he used to take me to the airfield all the time, and I could watch the airplanes coming in, and he knew exactly what it was, from what kind of engine and how many people it could seat. And I got this awesome opportunity. I got asked to go to Japan on a trade mission with the Alberta government, and the city of Leduc was actually going to sponsor me to go to it. And I got to meet with the Edmonton Airport, Canadian North Airlines, and the mayor of Leduc. And they brought me around the trade show floor in Japan and said, like, could you take your existing technology and adapt it into an aircraft heater? It hadn't been redesigned in like 60 years. And I was like, oh yeah, sure. I had no idea if we could or not, but I was absolutely going to say yes, because you should always take every opportunity that you can. Never miss out on an opportunity. So I was like, no, we can do it. We'll figure this out. So it was absolutely amazing. 3/4 of the people who came on that trip with us actually invested and bought shares in our company. The Edmonton Airport gave us 50% of the development costs. So they partnered with us, and Canadian North allowed us to do all the testing on their airplanes. So this is our 4th winter into testing, and we can do things that our competitors absolutely can't do, which is really exciting. So a lot of people don't think of it. If you're getting onto an airplane in the wintertime, what it actually takes to heat that aircraft. So you have these pieces of ground equipment that are actually on the ground, and they have a hose, and this hose is taking the air from the ground cart heater and trying to put it into the aircraft. And it does it for two reasons. One, if it's below -10, you want to keep your water lines from freezing because that could cause a lot of damage to the airplane. And then two, you really want to make sure your passengers are comfortable, because if it's -30 on the aircraft, your passengers aren't going to be happy to get on that aircraft. But a lot of the existing equipment, by the time it would hit about -20, it couldn't heat the aircraft by itself. So the aircraft has to turn on a rear auxiliary engine. So you're running engine hours on it. And depending on the size of plane, it could be anywhere from like 174 liters of jet fuel per hour plus. And you still have to have this ground piece of equipment burning like 22 liters of diesel. And then you'd have to pay to have an engineer or someone qualified to be in the cockpit if the APU is on. And so you have these three cost centers trying to heat this aircraft. And if you go up to the Northwest Territories, you're now doubling and tripling the cost that you would pay, across Canada, just because trying to get it up there, you have to get it by boat as opposed to, getting it delivered by truck. So our technology can heat the aircraft into -50. We actually just proved that out this weekend. -50, we heated the aircraft on its own, no APU, no engineer. Effectively, we can take, it costs you $100,000 to heat the plane in the winter. We can take it down to like $10,000 to heat the plane.
That's absolutely fantastic. And
I love
how I can see your passion and your enthusiasm for this. So I've got a question for you. Like, what drove you to expand your vision? Because I know you from blockchain, and I'm curious, how did you get into blockchain from clean tech straight into blockchain? Talk to me about that.
So it's kind of like there were multiple different steps that drove me into it. So at one point, I saw my mother posting on Facebook, like, message me if you want to buy Bitcoin. I was like, what is that? What, mom? What are you doing? I was so confused. I was like, what is Bitcoin? I had no idea. This is like back in like 2016. The fact that my mother figured this out first, but it was actually one of our shareholders had convinced her to get into a Ponzi scheme, which was really, really sad to see. And so she was buying this Bitcoin and putting it into something called USI Tech. And I was like, this just doesn't make a lot of sense. And then like my aunts were getting into it. So mainly it was like targeting people who are in their 60s to get into this USI Tech. And I'm like, all right, Mom, I'm going to research this. I was like, don't put all of it, hold some Bitcoin. All right, if that's what you want to do. And I was like, let's just let me get into it a little bit more. So it was weird because right around that time, my sister started dating a gentleman who worked for a company called Oleum Capital. And this was one of the people who ran it was called Dave Bradley. So the guys at Oleum were like, oh, come in, because they were doing kind of like an STO, I guess, at the time. And they were getting into like GOR rights for oil field and looking at investing in clean technology. And the gentleman, one of the Daves that ran it, had Oil Field Weekly. So he was familiar with our company because of what we were doing in oil and gas. So I came in, kind of gave him the pitch, and their company was like really interested in investing. And they're like, yeah, we deal with Bitcoin. And I was just like, okay, I keep hearing about this. What the heck is it? And I was like, so is it like money? Are you giving me money? Like, are you laundering money? I was just, again, really confused. So I literally I left the office. I called my lawyer and I was like, I need to look into these guys because they're talking about investing a lot of money. They're talking about this Bitcoin thing. And I need to know if it's like legitimate or not. So after that, I just started studying. I was like, well, what is Bitcoin? I asked the guys, could you send me some resources on it? They sent me to Banking on Bitcoin. I passed out during that documentary. I was like, this is boring. I don't understand it. How is it money? And then
I loved it, maybe because like there are people that I knew that were in it, but I found it very interesting. But you were like, I passed out. Okay,
I literally fell asleep and I woke up like, oh crap, I missed it. Well, that's not very interesting. Because I'm also extremely technical. So I was like, if they couldn't explain the technical side, it was kind of like a feel-good piece on, hey, there's Bitcoin. And so then I tried to take classes on Bitcoin. And this guy, I found out he was like a major scam artist in the area. And he was like, oh yeah, buy Bitcoin and you trade this and then get into all these altcoins and you stake and all this other stuff. And it was like, he's trying to teach me all this trading. And I was like, I just don't understand it. So this is what Bitcoin is. You have to like trade on an exchange and you're getting into crap like Panda Coin and Dogecoin and Ripple and all these other things. And I was like, I was trying to study like linear theory and Weinkauf and Elliott scale and Fibonacci. And I was trying to study all this and going, I still don't get it. Finally, I got really lucky and I met this young guy named Russ Cox and he started talking about mining. And I was like, okay, there's a technical component to this. So I got into mining. So I started reading all these white papers and I started learning how to build my own GPU mining systems. Well, I got slightly obsessed with it. I ended up building about a 250 card farm in my basement. all,
Fantastic.
all these
Amazing.
all these GPU mining rigs.
You
Like
must
we
have
were
been
one of
very
the first
warm.
miners on. It was extremely warm. It was way too hot. My whole house was just like overheating. But it really helped me understand, okay, proof of work. And while I was in that, I was like, I got to listen to Safety speak, and I started reading the Bitcoin Standard.
Mhm.
And then I was like, okay, we need to teach people about kind of like the history of money and what is Bitcoin. And there was just so much information out there, and there was so much misinformation out there. I was like, we need to have a safe space so people don't keep getting caught up in all of these scam artists. And like, let's just do free
Okay.
classes. While that was happening, Dave Bradley had come to me because they had put on something called the Bitcoin Rodeo in Edmonton. And I guess I was making a bit of a name for myself, like calling out scam artists in the space. I was so pissed off at all these people that were just ripping people off of money.
Mhm.
And he's like, hey, would you help me put on this event, but in Edmonton? So I was in the midst of putting on that event, and the woman who had actually commercialized my technology in the oil and gas space, her name was Suzanne West.
Mhm.
She came up with this concept for this organization called the Alberta Blockchain Consortium about 3 months before she passed away. And
Mhm.
her company, Imaginia, kept going for a short period of time. And this really sweet girl named Lanny was trying to do these kind of like little meetup groups with it on a monthly
Mhm.
basis. And then a gentleman named James Graham with Guild One came to me, and they're like, look, they're not really doing anything with it anymore. You're a real go-getter. I think you'd really do something with it. And you were really close with Suzanne. Do you think you would like take this on and preserve her legacy? I was like, oh, okay, but what am I taking on? Is there like a website? Is it incorporated? He's like, I really have no
Yeah.
idea. So I called my lawyer. I was searching domains. I was like, okay, no one's done anything with this. So halfway through putting on this technology symposium, I went to Dave and I was like, would you do this with me? Would you, create this blockchain consortium? And he's like, yeah, okay, sure. So we actually used the technology symposium that we pulled off, and it was amazing. We brought people from all across the space. Like Safedine came and spoke, Rodolfo was there. We had just so many incredible like Bitcoin speakers.
Mhm.
And we even had ministers from our government, provincial ministers that came and learning about this, and people were just commenting on
Mhm.
what an incredible event it was. So from that I was like, all right, we'll make it a real thing. So we turned this Alberta Blockchain Consortium into kind of like a really upscale networking for anywhere from like developers to people with businesses to executives. And
Mhm.
we decided, let's make sure we really grow the community and we don't charge them for anything. So we ended up getting like sponsors. So I built a board, like VP of Royal Bank and partners at these major law firms and stuff, and kind of gave them this vision of let's build this blockchain organization to really help, put Alberta on the map and make Alberta a technology hub and cluster, and really educate people on what the technology is, what it isn't, right? Help
Mhm.
people avoid scams, teach them, how to identify
Mhm.
the scams that are out there, teach them why they shouldn't be investing in ICOs. And yeah, I guess 3 years later, we're the
Mhm.
largest not-for-profit blockchain industry organization in Canada now. And it's been a real treat. We're having a lot of fun growing that. So it's kind of like my off the side of my desk passion project while I still run
Mhm.
my company. But
Mhm.
yeah, I guess it's a very roundabout way of how all the different steps it took for me to get into the space
Yeah.
I'm in.
So what drives you? Because you've got drive like very few people I've ever seen. So what drives you? What keeps you going in this space or just in general?
My kids. When
Oh.
I was when I was 20 and found out I was going to be pregnant, and I was in an abusive relationship. I knew the dad wasn't going to stay. I was a very broke young mom, and I was going to have to live with my parents. And I just knew, I was
Mhm.
like, I have to do anything and everything to make sure that my kid has a really, really good life. And
Okay.
so that's what kind of motivated. I used to work 3 jobs while trying to build my first business so it could eventually start
Mhm.
to pay me. And then by the time he hit, I guess, 10, I found I was going to have my second kid. And actually, that's what really propelled me into blockchain and everything, because
Mhm.
I was married at the time, but I was kind of like single income earner, you know, couple day old
Mhm.
baby back at work, have to make it happen. He was thankfully like staying home and taking care of the kids. But it was, and then my sister had kids and she needed support too. So it's really much like my family. It's like I had to earn as much as I possibly could to make sure that my sister was okay, my mom was okay, me and my kids were okay.
Mhm. Okay, wow. That's incredible. That's incredible. And, you know, I'm happy that we've benefited from your drive, and the community and Canada in general has benefited. And also, people are recognizing you, and you're going out and you're winning awards. And I feel as if you're finally getting the national and international recognition that you deserve. But I'm curious, what do you want people to know about success? Is there anything that you think that people who are coming up, and building their own business or working for corporate need to know?
I remember reading this quote on a wall plaque once, and I was like, gosh, if that
Mm-hmm.
isn't the most accurate thing. It's just like success isn't for everyone because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work, and if you're not willing to work for it, and when I say work for it, it's just like if you're doing something that drives you, that you wake up in the morning because you are absolutely excited to do what you're going to do, that passion feeds through, and it keeps your company going. But it's work, it's not luck. Like, there's absolutely no such thing as luck in this pace. People look at you and go, oh, how'd you get so lucky? And it's just like, well, you were out partying, I was working, while you were
Mm-hmm.
relaxing on the weekend watching Netflix, I was working. Like, the things that you sacrifice to get to where you want to be are, to me, worth it,
Mm-hmm.
because you're going to be able to do what you love, and then you're going to be able to make money at it. But it's not for everyone. Like, it's a grind, and it's stressful. It is, like, beyond stressful. Like, my health has failed a few times almost because the level of stress of being an entrepreneur. You're like, amazing, oh yay, oh yeah.
I
So,
hear you. I hear you. Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. People don't realize like what a grind it is. Our friend Amber Scott sent me a meme this weekend saying, blockchain and Bitcoin, it's 24/7, get some rest. Because, you're surviving on 4 hours sleep and you're like, I must keep going. So I fully understand that. But here's my question for you, Koleya. What advice would you give to young women and people in general that look up to you and what you're accomplishing besides, success
work
is
hard.
work dressed in overalls? Yeah.
Honestly, I'd say follow your dreams. Like, if anything, like, I've been told by some of the leading combustion experts in the world, that's not possible, you can't do that. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just like, nope. Like, don't listen to your haters, don't listen to your naysayers. Do what it is that drives you, that you want to do, and you'll be successful at it. And just because you're a woman and a visible minority does not mean anything. Like, I have gotten some of the, like, I might look light skinned because my father's Black and my mother was white, but still being, like, visibly not exactly fully Caucasian, and then being young and a woman, it's just like, you're going to get sexually derogatory marks, you're going to get ethnically derogatory marks. And if you let that define who you are and create kind of like a bitterness, you're going to have a hard time making it forward. It's like, you have to, I wouldn't say quite so much brush it off, but don't let it belittle yourself. Don't let it impact you to the point where you don't feel that you can keep things moving forward, because no matter what you can, you are just as smart, you are just as capable, you are just as competent, you are just as incredible as everybody else who's ever made any level of success. And don't let anybody else ever tell you differently, ever.
That was amazing. And on that note, that was a really high note. We're going to end this, but thank you so much, Koleya. The time really passed so incredibly quickly. And I really appreciate you taking this time to share with us your wisdom.
Thanks. It was a pleasure to be here. Thanks for interviewing, Emma. I love you. You are also an
Oh,
insane
thank you.
powerhouse, absolutely incredible. You are definitely one of my inspirations in the space as well. I love
Thank
all the
you.
different things that you do. And, if you
Thank
don't know, Emma's
you.
also an incredible supporter of our consortium and a powerhouse leading our FinTech committee. So women can do all kinds of things.
You can. You can. Don't want anything to define you. If you want to do something, do it. Do it.
Absolutely.
Yep. Anyway, thank you, everybody. And we'll be back with some other powerhouse people that I'll be speaking with throughout the month of February for Black History Month. But thank you, everyone. Have a great day.